guys, and welcome back to JavaScript Playground. In this video, we will send a post call to the backend to create new to-do items. Let's give it a try. So what we want to do is, when someone types something here, let's say buy apples, and when someone clicks on this add list item button, it should send a call to the backend and create new to-do item. So once the to-do item is created at the backend, we will get a success response. And once we get the success response, we can simply add the newly created item to the list. So this was one way. Other way would be when the list item gets created successfully on the backend, we refresh the page and bring all the data from the backend, which doesn't make sense. So that's why we're going to go with the first method, which is when someone types something here and hits this add list item button, a call goes to the backend, it creates a new to-do item, and on success, we simply append this newly created item to the list. So let's give it a try. Let's create a new function. So function create to-do item at backend. For now, let's just create an alert here, say called, and this function will be called from event listener of button add. Let's check it. So when I click on this button, it says called, which is working perfectly fine. Now instead of showing the alert, what we want to do is we want to send a call to the backend. So to send a call to the backend, what we need is we need an instance of this XML HTTP request object. So let's give that a try. So var, let's say HTTP new to create a new instance. So XML HTTP request, and this will create a new object. Now to set the type of request, now this will be post. So instead of get, we use post. And we can use the same URL and asynchronous. So this dummy backend, it accepts the same URL with method post to create new to-do items. But when you're working with live projects, your backend might have different URLs to create different items. So you will have to use your specific URLs. Now to send this call, we can simply do http.send. Now there's a small difference here. So when you're working with post, you're also sending some data to the backend. So let's create that data. So let's say object, and this object in this case will be same as this one. So let's copy it and paste it here. It wouldn't have ID because ID needs to get generated automatically at the backend. So it will have this user ID, a title, and completed. So we can get this title by our input box, and that value is getting updated in this variable current input value. So let's use it. So instead of this title, now we have that current input value. And to send this data to the backend, you cannot simply send it as JSON, especially when you're working with XML HTTP request object. You have to send it as a string. So JSON.stringify, and you pass the object. And you can use this stringified JSON object inside this send method, and this will be sent to the backend. So let's give it a try. So coming back here, inspect. So when your user types something here and clicks on this button, this function will be called, and this call will be sent to the backend with this object that we create based on the data inside the input box. So let's try. So as you can see, a new call was sent. Status code 201. So 200, all these 200s are success scenarios. So 200, 201, 203, 204, etc., etc. So again, this depends on how the backend developers have designed the backend for you. So in this case, we are getting 201. So we have to handle it accordingly. Also, if you come down here, there's a request payload. So whatever data you passed is visible here. So this just shows that our call was successful and the data was sent to the backend. Now what we can do is handle the response, and whenever there's a success, just add this list item to the list. So let's give that a try. Now to handle success or failure, you can use this HTTP on ready state change. So let's give it a try here. So instead of 200, it will be 201. So ready state 4, which means the call is executed, we've got the response. And if it's 201, that means it's success. So we can handle the success here. So let's say console log. For now, let's just print add item to the list. Let's save it. Let's give it a try. So when I write something here, let's say buy bananas. I hit this. It shows the message add item to the list. And if you check your network, so the call was sent buy bananas and the response was 201 success. So again, to add this to the backend, what we can do is use the same function that we created here. Create to do dynamically. We can pass it an ID and the title. Now if you notice the response here, so preview shows you the response, or you can also click on the response. It gives you a JSON with an ID. So inside this XML HTTP request, to access the response, we can do this dot response text. Let's store it in a variable. And to convert this to JSON, we can simply use json.parse. So it converts the JSON string into JSON object. And to get a value from the object, we can simply do object.key. So in our case, the key is ID. So now we get access to that ID, and we already have access to the current input value in this variable. So we can simply pass that here. So this will create an element for us. So once the element is created, we can append it in the list. So append child, and this should add the list item. So let's give it a try. So let's say buy carrots. When I hit this button, a call is sent. It shows you title buy carrots. But if you notice, the response ID is same because this is just a dummy backend. So that's where you're getting the same values in response. So if you come down here, a new item is added. So that's how you can send call to the backend to create new elements. I hope this gave you a better understanding how to use post calls.